Hi, my name's Andre, and what we're going to be doing in this application lesson is taking a closer look at argumentative writing generally. But as you know, in our first lesson, we looked at expository writing and discursive writing. So let's just quickly recap what those are. You understand that expository writing is factual, unbiased, and discursive writing has more to do with opinion and proving those opinions. So in fact, let's define them closely. In expository writing, you use simple, clear statements, you use neutral statements, and you give essential information only. When you're looking at discursive writing, you give detailed descriptions, you're able to state your opinions, and you give reasons to substantiate what you're claiming. Now, before we go on, let's just look at this whole issue of fact and opinion. We need to compare and define the difference between a fact and an opinion. So let's begin by defining a fact. A fact is a claim that is proven and accepted. So what happens in the world is that someone makes a claim, and then by our experience, by our common agreement, if you like, we come to accept that as a fact. Now think about something as obvious as gravity. On Earth, well, it exists. Our experience tells us that it exists, and science tells us that it exists. You make a claim, you prove it by experience or by experimentation, and we come to regard that claim as a fact. An opinion is something quite different though. For example, I may believe X. And what I have to do to make you believe X is persuade you that that is in fact the truth. Now let's closely define an opinion. An opinion is a belief that isn't proved. Look at this picture of a woman. I can state as my opinion, this is a lovely woman, but of course you might not agree with me. So firstly, both of us would have to state what we think. And then, ideally, we'd want to persuade one another that what we believed was the truth. Let's take another look. I might say, look, she has lovely eyes, or she has the most well-shaped mouth I've ever seen. And you may say, oh no, her hair is the most terrible color. Right, so now do you understand the difference between a fact and an opinion? For the fact, we generally accepted it. But for an opinion, what we tried to do was to persuade one another. Let's look at another two examples. The first one, the house is a prime piece of property. Now think about whether that is a fact or an opinion. And now another one. It has rained for 3 hours non-stop today. Again, were you able to tell which was the fact and which was the opinion? In the first statement, there is no doubt that the writer has given us his opinion, or her opinion, of what this house is like, the value of the house, the appearance of the house. In the second, however, we have just made an observation, and that observation is proven, as it were, by all of our experience. It's unbiased, it holds no opinion, and it has rained for 3 hours non-stop today is merely a statement of fact. Right, so now you're clear on the difference between fact and opinion. And given that you know that, we need now to look more closely at expository writing. So we've drawn up for you the map of a school. Take a look at what it shows us. We've got a tennis court, classrooms, the hall, and a swimming pool. What we're going to do together now is to describe a route from the pool to the hall. You'll notice that when we do this, we're going to be trying to use simple, unemotive, direct, and effective language. So let's begin. Standing at the pool, you'll be able to see a tennis court to your left. Go past the tennis court and follow the line of classrooms, keeping them on your left. When you see the fountain on your right, the hall effectively should be right in front of you. Right, I hope you noticed the way we actually describe that route. There was no emotion involved, and certainly we didn't add any value judgment or opinion to this issue. We just described in the clearest, simplest possible way how to get from the pool to the hall. Remember, that is what we call expository writing. Now let's look at something else. Let's go back to discursive writing. Here, I'd like us to discuss an issue, the issue of vegetarianism. To effectively discuss the issue, we need to look at points for that issue, people in favor of vegetarianism, as well as points against that issue. Let's work on paper. What we'll do is write down one opinion, which is for vegetarianism, and one opinion against vegetarianism. They're known as pros and cons. So here we go. A pro, something for vegetarianism, could be vegetables are good for your health. And then something against vegetarianism, humans need meat in their diets. Right, each of those is an opinion. It is something which an individual would believe. In order to take this discussion one step further, what is necessary is that each of these opinions is proved. So let's look at some proof. We could add, vegetables are good for your health because they contain no cholesterol. And against vegetarianism, we could say, well, humans need meat in their diets because the proteins in meat are found nowhere else. Right, so what we've done here is make a claim and then add some evidence and example to prove that claim. You'll remember that for the pros, we said, well, vegetables are good for you because they contain no bad cholesterol, any cholesterol at all, in fact. When we did the cons, we did this. We said humans need meat in their diets, and we added the evidence. Proteins are found nowhere else. Effectively then, what you need to remember is that in discursive writing, you're looking at both the issues for and the issues against, the pros and the cons. Now, let's go back to the two styles, expository writing and discursive writing. And what we want to do now is recap the situations in which each of these is used. Right, so now remember this from the lesson, because when you do, it's going to help you organize and structure your expository writing and your discursive writing. Expository style is used for scientific writing, reporting, for giving instructions. On the other hand, discursive style is used to explore, to discuss, to inform. Now let's move on to another issue. It's really important that you notice when you're being biased or emotional. In fact, what we tend to do in our writing and our speech is to state our opinion as if it were a fact. Let's look at an example where someone has done exactly that. Read this with me. All the matrics did not work hard for the exam. Now, the moment you look at that, you're going to understand that this is an opinion. Someone has decided that all the matrics did not work hard for the exam. And your clue, right to begin with, is this word, all. Clearly, that's a generalization. And later, we'll be looking very closely at this kind of fallacy, this kind of error in argument. Then there's also this verb, did not work. Look here, did not work hard for the final exam. And what happens there is that the writer attempts to state something as if it is a fact. Think about something like the sky is blue. The verb is used directly, and what the writer tends to do is to say, well, no argument exists. It is stated, an opinion is stated, as if it were a fact. Remember, this is something to be avoided. If you were to use something like this in your writing, be aware that you'd have to add here some kind of proof to prove this opinion. So my advice to you is that you make absolutely sure that what you've claimed to be a fact is a fact, and then that when you state opinions, you prove and substantiate them well. Thanks for joining me today. Goodbye.